the Belt and Road Initiative. Let me very briefly review what's happened over the last decade. As you know, a very just decade ago, China, President Xi Jinping announced or launched the Belt and Road Initiative, basically going west, right? And Europe, Central Asia, Middle East, Southeast Asia, South Asia as well, and Africa. And then a year after, China established the Silk and Road Fund, and then AIIB, 2015, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, to facilitate, these, ambitious or, the BRI's project, or initiate the entire process. And then 2 years after, 2017, China hosted the first Belt and Road Initiative high-level forum in Beijing. And 2019, second forum after the COVID, this month, China going to host the third BRI's high-level initiative symposium or something like that. But I'm not sure exact date, but this month, China is going to celebrate the decade anniversary or something like that. So this is what happened over the last decade. But the problem is, what is BRI? Actually, I have asked a lot of Chinese friends or even Japanese firms, do you know what is BRI? They know there is BRI, but don't know what is BRI. So, are you benefited or how you committed? Actually, around BRI, there are a lot of different understanding, different perceptions, misunderstanding, miscalculation. So I think now it's a very good time to evaluate the 10 years past, what is the BRI, and how to, do you have any lessons or implications from these tracks? I think it's a very fascinating time to discuss this issue. So I am not going to ask each panelist specific question in terms of, not to restrict their presentation and respect their freedom of speech. But prior to that, let me propose 3 basic questions, and you can present based on these 3 questions. The first one is, what is the BRI in your view? This is the fundamental but very critical question. What is the BRI? Second, how do you evaluate the 10-year track record? Any achievement or misunderstanding, in terms of, for example, mutual trust between China and the rest of the world. And third one is implications for your country, or in any specific lessons or problems, even challenges between China and the rest of the world, or China and your country. So, so given these 3 basic and open questions, I hope each panelist could present, I think 5 to 7 minutes, but you don't have to go on the podium to save the time. So you can remain here. So each panelist could have 5 to 7 minutes, and then maybe I have some follow-up questions or just directly open to the public, okay? So first of all, let me invite Professor Ali Riaz, as we told, the distinguished professor, Illinois State University, USA. Please, Professor.
Thank you. If we just look at the acronyms BRI, it tells us it is a Belt and Road Initiative, which presupposes or precisely underscores the infrastructural development of it. However, the way I see BRI, based on its decade-long success or failure or whatever, however you put it, BRI doesn't come as an infrastructural project only. BRI should be viewed within the global political spectrum where it stands. The extension of the financial support, economic support that we see with respect to BRI, it comes with this ideological baggages that tells us that BRI should not be seen simply as a source of funding. And here, the BRI should be understood, and as I understand it, as in a sense a parallel to the existing global order and financial system. The Bretton Woods system that came out after the Second World War, given this, the trinity, holy or unholy trinity that has emerged, and this is a challenge to that trinity to a great extent, that is IMF, World Bank and the UN system that we have seen. So what it tells us with respect to the agenda that we see based on the last decade. And that takes me to the second question of evaluating it. How do we evaluate it? The evaluation is this: there has been massive investment, but this massive investment that came out of China, in large measure in Africa, but definitely in other places, it has the potential, for an understandable reason, it has the potential to connect all the countries that in some cases have left quite on the margin. So it provides the connectivity that is necessary for economy. But that connectivity is not exactly based on the equality of the countries. If we look at the extensive investment in Africa, apparently which are without any strings attached. Because what we know for sure over the years since 1945, the major issue with respect to this Holy Trinity or Unholy Trinity, that is particularly with IMF, World Bank, is the conditionalities that imposes. And generally speaking, it is understood, and this understanding is not exactly unfounded, that the BRI comes with no strings attached. Meaning the concerns that we see with respect to IMF or the World Bank funding, which involves the environmental issues or to a certain extent human rights issues, labor rights issues, that seems to be ignored by BRI. And that is where my evaluation and my concerns are. That BRI has become the apparatus of new kind of imperialism. I'm not condoning or I'm not disregarding the fact that over the years, in the previous decades, and possibly in previous centuries, European colonialism has practically bereft or stolen in African continent, in other places, no doubt in Asia and Latin America. But in case of BRI, having not strings attached, has a string itself, and that is the unseen, unwritten conditionalities of these ideological underpinnings. That is where these underpinnings work. And in many cases, for example in Africa, and definitely those of us who are familiar in the South Asia have been known for this so-called debt trap. I have said so-called debt trap because not necessarily it is always the case, but it does have this potential. And in case of Sri Lanka, we have seen it, but we are also witnessing, if we closely look at the situation in the investments that has been made in Africa. Africa has become practically the battleground in the sense that it provides the BRI projects have not succeeded in only achieving the infrastructural development, but also has created a new kind of relationship. So BRI is not only about infrastructure, it is not only about finance, it is also about the relationship it does develop. And here, as I have mentioned, that this, post-Second World War order, that has been a challenge. BRI has posed a challenge to this. In some cases successfully, in some cases not so successfully. But essentially what it did, it has tried to destabilize the existing global order. It is not my intention to say that the development funding that is necessary has not been provided or it has not been necessary. In many instances, and possibly in larger instances, the countries that we know have been involved in BRI have received this funding for infrastructural development because at the core of their economic development, infrastructural development is an essential thing and it has been avoided for quite long. And in many cases it has been avoided for a reason. Good or bad, you can make a subjective judgment, but there are reasons for these kind of things. One, of course, the massive amount of corruption that we have seen since 1970s in many of these cases, which has created a sort of crony capitalism. I call it corrosive capitalism that has been infused into this and that has been stolen, and that is what left this absence of this infrastructural development. So that opportunity has come through BRI. But this having that has also created an opportunity for further corruption and use of those capital as a corrosive capital. What is corrosive capital in my understanding? Corrosive capital is those capitalists or those funding, those capital which provides the incumbent and its policies to be bereft of accountability mechanism. And this is where my criticism with respect to BRI. On the one hand, it is challenging the global order, which is fine in the sense that we need to make corrections. This current global order does not necessarily provide the best option for us. In many instances, it has been so long and so old that it doesn't reflect the ground reality. But by challenging it with an ideological underpinning that does not include the accountability mechanism, which is essentially necessary and essentially representative and doesn't challenge the corrupt practices, is going to go on, and this is where it stands as of now. So what is the good part? Good part is the development that we see, infrastructural development. I must make infrastructural development because infrastructural development is only one component. Let me finish as my time has come up. What is the implication for Bangladesh? What we have seen is having a member and some of the projects under the BRI has provided a legitimacy to a government which is unaccountable by all accounts. It's a moral legitimacy, constitutional legitimacy, both can be questioned. So having this is not exactly helping Bangladesh to develop in the way it should have been developed with an inclusive measure. I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Riaz. I think it's very comprehensive but very specific. You provided cases and implications in Bangladesh. Yeah, I think I agree. This BRI is not only or more than economic or just connectivity, but it is influencing the new world order or the development for each nation, including here in Bangladesh. So I think that's quite important, and let's wait and see, because BRI is, I think, going on maybe in the next decade or longer. So next, may I invite Professor Patnaik, she's research fellow, Manoa Parika Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, India. Professor, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and very interesting 3 questions that you have raised. Of course, already Ali has spoken quite a bit about not just about the implications, the accountability, and the kind of development one has seen. I would just make a few points, like for example, of course, after 2013, when the BRI was announced until date, it has more than 1 trillion investment in various parts of the world. And I think that is extremely significant, and to a very large extent, the announcement of BRI fulfilled many of the development aspiration of many of the government, which has been wanting to implement infrastructure projects in the country, but really did not have the kind of capital which is required for this kind of investment. So BRI came as a kind of blessings at that point of time, because it is not just it brought in massive investment, but it was more of a kind of what we say one window clearance, because if the Chinese have committed to something, generally the money comes, unlike the democratic country where you have to go through various process, even to sanction even $1 billion, it has to be basically passed by not just the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but the finance and others. So therefore, in that sense, the massive investment which was required for development and always filled up a kind of aspirational politics, because democracy always believes in a kind of aspiration. It means development. It means bringing greater economic prosperity to the people. And people are generally not so much bothered about the kind of debt this particular investment may bring. But, often in the case of Sri Lanka, which you have seen, that the kind of economic crisis it faced, actually we see that such kind of investment may bring in much more misery to the people. But nevertheless, I would say that the kind of investment it brought in, it was significant. Now, in terms of the achievement we have seen in the past 10 years, there is this debate about the Chinese debt trap and how it is affecting the economy of most of the countries where the money has been brought in, but especially the agreement which has been signed between the Chinese companies and the host government, those are remain very opaque. It is not available in the public. So nobody knew what is actually the interest rate. And in many places, people also say that the interest rate has escalated, like for example, from 3% to 7% in the context of some of the projects in Sri Lanka. So therefore, in terms of achievement, while it produced a lot of infrastructure development in terms of the port, in terms of infrastructure, investment in minings and all, which in fact helped China, but also at the same time, some of the countries have been very apprehensive, especially those countries who are looking for investment. Like for example, we have seen in the neighborhood many of the projects which earlier was agreed was scaled down a bit so that, you know, the debt actually is something which will be sustainable. So in a sense, right now the emphasis is much more on a sustainable debt. Invest in sectors which actually is going to earn that kind of money and which can be used to pay back the debt which, or pay back the money which has been taken from China. We have seen in the context of Sri Lanka, where the Hambantota port, in fact, went for the kind of equity arrangement, and I've got some figure that around 60% of these projects have been taken over on the basis of equity by the Chinese company. All over the world, there are some figures which are available on the, in the website. That also tells you that, why it is becoming equity is a very different kind of thing as far as the debt is concerned. Thirdly, I would say that while this infrastructure is supposed to boost economy, but infrastructure in itself cannot boost economy unless until you have those kind of policies in place which facilitates trade, which in fact boost the economy in terms of, so therefore I would say that while infrastructures are there, in some of the places you really do not have the government policy where the infrastructure can be used to have a kind of prosperity. In terms of implications as far as the BRI is concerned, of course, India is not a signatory of BRI and it has certain reservation regarding the BRI because of the CPEC. But also at the same time, in terms of implications to India, obviously we have seen in the context of Sri Lanka, basically when the economic crisis happened, and it was India which provided nearly $4 billion of help at that point of time in terms of medicine, in terms of fuel and other kind of daily necessities. So therefore the concern will always be that if the country face a kind of economic crisis, obviously the implications will be on the neighbor directly in terms of, because the kind of border you share and the kind of economic interdependency which has increased over the period of time. So I would say that while BRI has the promise of, in a sense, boosting the investment scenario, because we saw many other projects, many other countries came in to invest after the BRI. And there are certain studies which says that earlier, whereas the World Bank was taking quite a bit of time to approve some of the investment, this thing, that has now been streamlined. It is slightly easier compared to earlier, and now many of these countries are also basically looking forward to invest. So investment has got a boost, not just coming from China. Japanese are also investing quite a bit in this region, and most of the countries, you have this IMEC was announced during the G20 summit. So a lot of infrastructure project has come into being. So I would say BRI generated a kind of competition for the infrastructure. In some cases it was successful. In some cases these competitions were not successful. In some cases apprehending that it may lead to a kind of debt, we have seen scaling down of the projects in Myanmar. in Nepal, they have been asking to convert some of these project to grant project, not something which is based on loan. So therefore, I would say that I will just end by saying that in a sense, it generated a kind of competition for infrastructure, and I think which is good. So it is upon the country which is taking the money from a foreign country, they have to evaluate in which sector they actually require, whether they require it or not, and on what scale they would require, and what will be the economic consequences. Suppose the project fails, or suppose that is it does not generate a kind of revenue, because it's easy that you get the money which you require for investment, but it is always difficult when the paying back time to come. So the evaluation needs to be done by the domestic government. So therefore, I would not say that BRI itself has led to debt trap. It has definitely led to unaccountability of how the money is being spent, but also at the same time, I would put a larger blame on the host country, which is taking this kind of money and not evaluating how they're going to pay back the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Yeah, please. A lot of challenges, right, in the process of investment, and actually sustainability matters. And Professor referred a couple of times to Sri Lanka, and people always say debt trap diplomacy. All right, so a lot of challenges in the process of implementing the BRI. So maybe it's too early to conclude what is BRI, but let's see. Next, may I invite my friend Bari from Iran. He's a professor international relations. Tarbiyat Moderate University, Iran. He is a geopolitical expert, so maybe he is presenting in terms of this. Please.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. It's great to be here, and thanks Center for Governance Studies for organizing this very timely conversation. So after 10 years of BRI, beyond the technical economic issues and shortcomings and developments, I think the main challenge for BRI, especially in the years to come, is more geopolitical and less geoeconomic. What I'm trying to say that is, there are the variety of issues to be addressed by China as it aspire for larger role and influence, especially in the targeted regions and areas that wants to connect the east-west corridors and also transportation balance. The potential partner, especially in the Central Asia, South Caucasus, Black Sea, Middle East, and east of Mediterranean Sea, see BRI as a very important initiative of infrastructure, trade, and also development to boosting their economies. But when it comes to the geopolitical and security issues, the reality is quite different, because they are reluctant to share their capacities with China to deter the interests that China wants to, formulate by its narrow down interests. Now, the main challenge, especially the geopolitical challenge the BRI face, are related to, first, the domestic turmoils, and the second, the rising regional conflict throughout those areas. For example, the Central Asia, the South Caucasus, as the conflict is undergoing between Armenia and Azerbaijan, or the corridors like alternatives like Zangezur, that is a missing puzzle in connecting China to Europe. And also in Black Sea, the Ukraine war, in the east of Mediterranean, the Palestinian-Israel issues, and as recently, the war and conflict erupted again. And also in the wider Middle East, the unending rivalry between regional stakeholders like Iran, Saudi, or the turmoils in Persian Gulf. All in all, they are very long-standing challenges that any global powers, if they want to, aspire for larger rule, not only in geoeconomic initiatives, but also diplomatic and political, institutions or initiatives, they should take care about it. Actually, as you know, China is the main trade and investor partner of most of, Central Eurasian and Middle East states. And now, through the lens of geopolitical landscape, a few countries view the BRI as a way to balance against their, security and geopolitical issues. In real politics, connectivity is matters, but it is meaningless without real shared norms and values. As one of the main goals and priority of China in BRI is people-to-people exchange and to foster the Chinese, geoculture influence throughout the world. The second challenge, I think it's going to be much more complex and complicated in tackling with is the great powers competition between United States and Russia, especially its spillover of, consequences in the Central Eurasia, in Black Sea, and in the Middle East. China is trying to, maintain its balancing act when it comes to the rivalry between US and Russia. But I think if the tension, going to rise between, US, NATO, more specifically, and China, China finally should, draw its path, and it's not time just meddling through the roads. And this third one is the changing essence and dynamics of Chinese relation with each of these countries, especially the influential countries in these areas. The BRI has had significant impact over the last decade and has, been a game changer in the infrastructure, development, trade, but it has fallen short in shaping a consistent and comprehensive geopolitical arrangement in regions and areas that BRI plans to invest in. What I'm trying to say is that China has not yet adopted any strategic visions to formulate or to architect any security arrangement in these areas. Now, if you look to any initiatives that China adopted to conflict resolutions, it's highly influenced by Chinese, narrow interest. It hasn't, relevant to the comprehensive and general issues in that region. For example, the recent diplomatic breakthrough that Beijing just done in Saudi-Iran compromises and detente. It happened because of the security of energy flows from the Persian Gulf. It's not, it's not influenced by the security dynamics and the geopolitical disorders that happening there, especially after the US retrenchment from the region. So, but looking forward, I think China intended to turn economic groupings into political bloc by, enjoying those institutions and mechanisms already China involved or, took leadership, like the expansion of BRICS, for example. As we can see, the political aims will overweight the economic aims in the years to come. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you for providing us, geopolitical aspects, from your Iranian perspective. As we discussed earlier, now Middle East is facing post-American disorder, but China is not getting in yet. So what happens next? That's a great question. So let's see. So next, Professor Shah. She's a professor, international Professor, Department of Diplomatic Studies, Foreign Affairs University, China. So you are from China, and very, very central, questions we are talking about. But please, floor is yours, so you can present freely and openly. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think first I should extend my thanks to the Center for Governance Studies, Bangladesh. Thank you for give us an opportunity to exchange views. In other words, it does diversified. Sometimes you think something is good, maybe somebody said that it's not so good. I think it's a good way, to exchange views, to better understand, to promote the better understanding among us. As to this topic, I would like to express my views from the two perspectives. First, I would like to give an overview of the achievements of the Belt Road in the past decade. And the second, I would say a little more about the debt trap, just several scholars mentioned. But since time is limited, maybe I just not go to very details. Professor Ali said maybe we just read the outline. As to the achievements of Belt Road Initiative in the past decade, there are 4 points. First, more and more countries became partners in the joint construction of the Belt Road Initiative. As we all know, this initiative is implemented outside the border of China, and the cooperations and support of the host country is a prerequisite for its implementation. As of the end of August 2020, more than 150 countries and more than 30 international organizations have signed the Belt Road cooperation documents with China. If the Belt Road is only good for China and will bring no benefits for other countries, I think there will be not so many countries and international organizations sign these documents with China. And the second, the BNR projects help to develop local economy and improve people's livelihood. I think through the Belt Road Initiative, China is sharing its own experience of economic development with the other world. You know, China has been a poor country, but since reform and opening up, our economy developed very fast. In China, we usually say that if you want to get rich, you must build roads first. Only when you get good roads, you can sell your products to more friends, to more trading partners at a good price. I think this is very simple, So all these projects, the Belt Road Initiative has so far involved more than 3,000 cooperation projects, boosting the investment scale of nearly $1 trillion. Soyham, former Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, once said that the Belt Road Initiative has become the biggest driving force for global green development. For example, Bangladesh is the first South Asian country to sign the Belt Road Initiative cooperation MOU with China. At the beginning of September this year, the first phase of the Dhaka Airport Elevated Expressway project in the capital of Bangladesh was completed. This project is the first and so far the biggest PPP project. Not all the funds come from China, it comes from different investors. And Chinese companies invested and participated in the construction. Prime Minister Hasina attended the ceremony to inaugurate the project and hailed it as a new milestone for Bangladesh's transportation infrastructure, which is expected to ease traffic congestion in Dhaka. I think we all experienced and feel these days when we are in Dhaka. And boost Bangladesh's economic growth. China, as a friendly neighbor and a strategic partner of Bangladesh, will continue to work with Bangladesh to advance a high-quality Belt Road cooperation and support Bangladesh in realizing the Solar Bangla dream at an early date. Projects in poverty reduction, agriculture technology, vocational education, and other areas of people's livelihood have effectively improved the living standards of people in the host country. We have a special website in China, in Chinese. It's all the stories about this kind of projects, what kind of benefits these projects has brought to local people. The World Bank estimates that the implementation of all relevant transportation projects under the Belt Road framework is expected to increase local income by 0.7% to 2.9% by 2030, freeing 7.6 million people from extreme poverty and 32 million people from moderate poverty. And third, over the past decade, high-quality joint construction of Belt Road has been steadily promoted. Yeah, just some professor mentioned that the problem of maybe of environment protection. And China has signed more than 50 cooperation documents on ecological environment protection, established Belt Road Green Development Initiative international lines, and jointly launched the Belt Road Green Development Partnership Initiative with 31 countries. Yeah, we also have the Digital Silk Road. Yeah, this Digital Silk Road is becoming a digital bridge to promote new globalization. And fourth, local technical talents have been cultivated through the Belt Road Initiative. Chinese believe that giving people fish is not as good as teaching them how to fish. For example, in January 2020, during the process of constructing the Central Business District project in Egypt, the Chinese side established Luban College, which is a public welfare education institution dedicated to training Egyptian employees in construction skills. As to the debt financed, as to the debt trap issue, I think that many foreign scholars have published books and papers on this issue. Here, because of the reason of time, I would just list a few examples. For example, a May 2019 Sydney Morning Herald article said that this research made analysis of 40 Chinese debt renegotiations, found that asset seizures are a very rare occurrence and debt write-off is the most common outcome. And also American professor Deborah Brodigan, a professor at Johns Hopkins University, she described the debt trap diplomacy as a meme. Yeah. This word means a type behavior that is passed from one member of a group to another, not in the genes, but by another means, such as people copying it, which became popular due to human negativity bias based on anxiety about the rise of China. Yeah. This professor and her colleagues said that the theory lacked evidence, criticized the media for promoting a narrative that wrongfully mispresents the relationship between China and developing countries that deal with.
Professor,
and also we have
sorry for interrupting. Sorry you have one more minute.
I will finish here. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Professor Xia, you introduced a lot of data, statistics. It's helpful for us to understand China, what China is going to do, and I believe China is doing their job. But the problem is how we deal with that, understand that, and narrow misunderstanding and communicate well. So let's see what's going on in the next decade. So lastly, let us invite Amma Khan. Now you are studying in Zili University, but you are originally from Pakistan. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone, and Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would really like to say thanks to organizers and especially to Sir Zilur Rahman for giving me this prestigious opportunity to be a part of such a forum. I have learned a lot during these 2-3 days and met so many amazing people here. So I will take this liberty and would really like to say my special thanks to the people of Bangladesh who were very hospitable and who were very respectable and showering your love for me. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay, so because we don't have much time, so let's coming to the part of BRI, the hot topic. So as I have been designated that I should talk about the CPAC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, because already so many people have talked about the BRI, so I will just touch a little bit about the CPAC. Okay, so if anybody don't know about it, so like China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a flagship BRI project between Pakistan and China, which will connect Chinese province Xinjiang to the Pakistan province Balochistan with its Gwadar port. So the project includes many development projects and including the transport infrastructure, energy projects, including the hydropower projects, so special economic zones, along with various social and economical projects. So when China and Pakistan signed CPAC in 2015, the scenario was that Pakistan was facing a huge era of darkness. There was so much terrorism going on everywhere, and we had so much problems related to power crisis, energy crisis, and economy was going very downwards. So it was a ray of hope for the people of Pakistan. So Pakistani people were very much excited, and it was labeled as the game changer for the Pakistan and game changer for the whole region. So that's another debate that is true at the moment or not, but yeah, that time it was really very hopeful for the people of Pakistan, because we were really in the phase of darkness. So that is why Pakistanis had special affiliation towards the China and the CPAC project, because they thought like this will change their fate. Anyways, if we talk about the current situation, I will not say that it's fully successful or fully not successful, but to some extent it really changed a lot, and it really helped in developing the country. It had a lot of projects, and there are a lot of projects which are already been completed. There are some projects which has been delayed, but it has various other factors. That's a huge debate. First, because the COVID happened in 2020, and for the 3 years, as you know, that not everything was functioning normally. So that is why all these projects were a bit late. But if you see, and there is a proper website available for the CPAC projects, that what is their progress. So you can see that a lot of projects have already been completed and have already produced a lot of opportunities for the Pakistanis and for the Chinese people as well, which includes like 8,000 megawatt energy has been added, that has helped to counter and help to improve the energy situation of the country. The situation of the country has improved a lot in terms of the energy and power sector. And then this project was originally $46 billion in 2015, but then it has been exceeded to $62 billion. So other than that, almost 510 kilometers of highways are already functional and providing access to Pakistani people from reaching from one place to another, and they are a very good source of communication. That has not just benefited the China for their trade purpose, but also benefited the local community, because now local community can commute very easily, and they can go from one place to another in a very short span of time, and that has really helped improve the inter-provincial relationships as well. Of course, there are some problems, and there are so many speculations in the media about it. We are going towards the debt trap and everything. There are so many problems, but the problems are of different dimensions. We cannot say that this is because of the Chinese investment, or the problems are because of the Chinese infrastructure or the project. The problems involved are due to some of the domestic political issues and some of the domestic, the socio-economic deprivation of the common and local people of those specific areas. That has slowed down the projects, and there is a security concern as well, especially in the region of Balochistan, which is the hub of CPAC investments, because they are constructing Gwadar port. So that is why there are some problems. But if we see in the bigger scenario, I would I will say that it has really improved the situation in Pakistan, and the development sector has Pakistan also improved a lot. And other than the infrastructure, other than the railway and roads network, it has established a lot of vocational institutes and hospitals and educational sectors that has really elevated that has touched the lives of the common people. So it is, as we say, that CPEC is a framework of regional connectivity, and it, it provides a win-win situation for Pakistan and China, and I think it can be used as a framework for the other countries as well. Of course, there are some problems. Of course, there is a lot of criticism on it, that how we are dealing with it. But I think that's the criticism, that these problems are due to the local governments and the political and domestic affairs of the countries themselves. We are often, when this Sri Lanka thing happened, so there was a lot of speculations in Pakistan as well, that what will be the fate of Pakistan. But I think it should depend on the government of the country as well, that how they keep their national interest at first. So they should be transparent in their projects, and they should keep their national interest at front. So if we keep the national interest at the front, and then go towards the development projects and with any country, so it will be beneficial for both the countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate, and your presentation reminded me, even the BRI-oriented cooperation could be implemented substantially rather than symbolically. So, and that's good. And my country, Japan. I'm sorry, Japan is not joining BRI, but our former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, unfortunately assassinated last year. His decision. We do not acknowledge the BRI itself, but if the projects, project-based, projects could guarantee openness, financial sustainability, economic feasibility, and transparency, we could join the project, but it doesn't mean acknowledge the BRI itself. It's a bit complicated, but so, we have a lot of ways to, engage or be committed. So I think, Pakistan, China case, even Japan, China, very, sensitive, complicated diplomatic relations. We are doing something, for example, we are doing, establishing a smart city in Thailand. We say third parties cooperation. Of course, we don't name it the BRI, but something happened. So let's see. And now I think the organizer let me close at 5. So we have 11 more minutes. So now let me open up to the audience. If you have any question, very quickly, don't ask questions, just don't comment, just ask questions. So identify yourself and ask a question very quickly. Thank you. So over there, the gentleman.
Yeah, hello, I'm Rizai from ISEC in Bangladesh. So as we all know, BRI is a good project, but my concern is, as you know, BRI project will increase debt to GDP ratio for several BRI countries. As we are a developing country, also our poverty rate is so high. So how does BRI reduce poverty? And my another question is BRI really sustainable and can reduce carbon emission, as we all are concerned about global warming and climate change? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Please, Professor.
I actually have a question for Dr. Khan. So thank you for your presentation. My question for you is, a lot of the focus on CPEC in Pakistan is on logistical and infrastructure projects. Very few people comment about the agricultural content of CPEC, and from my point of view, that's the most pernicious aspect of CPEC, and I was wondering if you could share your thoughts about that topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Fair. Okay, just ready, please.
So my question is to Mr. Gul Mohammadi, as you have mentioned of geopolitical aspects regarding BRI. So the BRI has not been unnoticed by other global powers. So which will lead to an increasing geopolitical situation. So which will create some conflict in the regions where BRI projects are underway. So which will lead to a situation where some diplomatic efforts will be in certain need So what are your thoughts on it? Thank you.
Please, the gentleman. Yeah.
Thank you. From the perspective of Latin America, which is not really included in BRI, even though China says it is, but we're geographically very far apart. The concern is BRI might divert trade rather than create more trade. And so it might hurt our economies from that perspective. I was wondering what the panelists have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. The last question would be, yeah, please.
Thank you. Leo. One question specifically to the guy from Iran as well. So, I mean, we're seeing in the region several crises. It was mentioned, of course, the crisis between Armenia and Azerbaijan regarding Nagorno-Karabakh, but also regarding a potential corridor being formed in the south of Armenia, the Zangezur corridor. And we are currently also seeing a rise a new massive conflict unfolding in the Middle East between the Hamas in Gaza and between Israel. So how do you think will that affect like other connectivity programs that are currently being shaped and formed? For example, IMAC, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, and also the Middle Corridor, which is one of the prime projects of Turkey when it comes to connectivity. Thank you.
Thank you all. So Vali, maybe you go first. No?
Let's start with Liping, as she just named the statistics, how China, fostering the, to develop infrastructure to avoid the poverty, especially in Bangladesh, please.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you need some time to prepare. Okay, I start with it. There are very good questions as to the, I think this provides a very good opportunity for me to know the different comments of this BIR initiative. Just, I think somebody asked whether it's sustainable. I think that when China put forward this initiative, not foreigners, but also including we Chinese, we are just question where this initiative lasting, how long will it last? What kind of results will it bring? Just as you know, we have many new concepts put forward, like the human with a shared destiny, something like this. But after 10 years practice, we really see that the circle of the friends involved in building in the construction Belt and Road initiative expanding. So I think, I don't know, how long it will last, but at the moment, for the past decade, it's really achieved good results.
Vali, go ahead. And next.
Okay, so I have one answer to both questions. Geopolitically speaking, the BRI initiatives is not well adapted with the geopolitical dynamics, especially in different regions that wants to connect China to Europe. And as we can see, China, has never adopted and issued any consistent, comprehensive, and dynamic conflict resolution mechanisms. For example, look to the South Caucasus, as my colleague and friend mentioned, and that erupted, from the Second Karabakh War, 2020. And it's, that it's highly region-specific, geopolitics of conflict there is going on. And where China stands in South Caucasus. So China is one of the beneficial and, big player in Central Eurasia, at least over the last decade. But when it comes to geopolitics, there is no role playing by China in this case. And this has led to a new geopolitics of regional conflict between regional stakeholders like Iran and Turkey over the Zangezur corridors. Or even when we, talk about the geopolitics, we should consider the alternative initiatives like Red Mode, Arab Mode, that, connects alternative routes to, connects East-West corridors together. So here, I think, beyond those diplomatic statements, the war on corridors already began. And the zero-sum game is going on there, and it's highly influenced by the shifting dynamics of global politics. As international system becomes more multipolar, these initiatives, at some point, in somewhere, and sometime, will clash together, and this is the reason why China has not, initiated any political or security arrangement to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Riaz, any comments?
Yeah, I just want to take the question on the reducing the poverty issue, because that seems to be very important to me, at least. Because if you look at the projects of the BRI and the long-term impacts of it, in large measure, one of the impact has been creating a new class, beneficiary of these projects. Why in most cases, the opaque nature of these projects has given opportunity to certain classes affiliated with the regimes. And I'm not talking only about Bangladesh, definitely. If you look at Africa, and I go back to Africa several times on this, because that is an important issue, and that is really significant. Does it reduce poverty? No, in long term it cannot reduce poverty when this capital practically is propping up a new class who are beneficiary of this. That's why just looking at what the project looks like, it looks good. It looks good. In some cases, of course, the consequences are enormously long-term consequences are bad. And that is why, to me, looking at BRI, as I have tried to, let me reiterate the point. The point with respect to BRI is the very nature of absence of openness, lack of accountability, corrosive nature of the capital and investment, and the strings, unwritten strings attached to it. Let us not forget those four things while we are looking at the buildings and the bridges and the other thing that BRI produces. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Patnaik, do you have any comments? No? Okay. So you can respond to.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your question. It was very good question. So when we talk about the agriculture, actually there are some agreements and there are some projects retaining to agriculture as well. So it's not like that they have totally ignored the agriculture sector or as such. But you are right that these agriculture sector agreements these projects are going a bit slower as compared to the infrastructure and the railway, or the highway sector projects. But there are some projects, and another thing, due to these good, if we have like better highways and if we have better mode of communication, so we can have we can import agriculture, pesticides, and the fertilizers from the China as well, and we can learn a lot from the Chinese agriculture technology and everything. But there, in a long-term plan of CPAC, there are a lot of projects, and they are going on regarding the agriculture sector. I can provide you the more details and the projects names, etc. personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all panelists for your contribution, and thanks audience for your patience, and because this is our very last event, plenary event, and I think China is going to host the third BRI high-level forum in person in Beijing this month, very soon. And my sense is, this is Xi Jinping's grand strategy, which accommodates his political slogan, the China Dream, the rejuvenation of the great Chinese nation. He's not saying rights, but rejuvenate. My sense is back to the future. My sense is back to the future. And this is something related to the BRIs and its strategy, tactics, economic, geopolitical, even political, implications for the rest of the world. So anyway, I think the BRI is deeply affecting the world order in this very complicated and unpeaceful era. So let's see what's going on in the next decade. So thank you so much. Thanks for your patience, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you all panelists for your special remarks. Now I am requesting you to come forward for a group photo. Thank you.
With this session, our 3-day-long conference came to an end. We cannot thank enough to each one of you from home and abroad to joining us at this conference. Now, I would like to call up on stage Jillur Rahman, the Executive Director of CGS and Chair of Bay of Bengal Conversation, Bangladesh, for his closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Honored guests, after 3 days of some of the most important discussions regarding the Indo-Pacific, we have finally arrived at the end. This year's Bay of Bengal Conversation, in all rigors, feels like a responding success. When we started this project last year, many people doubted us. Many didn't believe that our small independent think tank could pull this event off just once, let alone make it an annual concurrence. Now, standing at the closing speech of the second Bay of Bengal Conversation, we feel victorious. I would like to thank each and every one of you, especially our honored speakers and moderators who traveled all across the world to join us here the last 3 days. The knowledge, insight, and perspective you bring with you truly make our conclave a true collage of international ideas and opinions. The panels we designed this year were about very difficult topics and often very sensitive in subject matter. But even among differing opinions, we have maintained conversation. And therefore, the door is still open for peaceful resolutions rather than festering differences and unending conflict. In that regard, I'd like to give a special thanks to the moderators who had the daunting and difficult task of structuring such enormous discussions from so many varied individuals and in so many varied fields of knowledge into such a concise format. This year, the Bay of Bengal Conversation has seen some landmark successes. Even though many ministers of the government of Bangladesh were invited to speak at last year's conference, none of them took to the podium and addressed the crowd. However, this year, for the first time, we had the Honorable Planning Minister of Bangladesh give his remarks and declared that they are, in fact, listening to us. Regardless of what might be the consequences of that, I believe that bringing the government side into our discussion is a massive breakthrough from our end. As I think of all the important boundaries we have crossed, all the voices we have enabled, and all the conversations we have conveyed, the question that lingers in my mind is, was it worth it? Is there value in this? Is there value in conversation? However, every time I think about this, I always come back to one single conclusion. This is track to diplomacy. Over the long term, and especially in recent times, track to diplomacy has become an integral part of any peace-building process. While you need to build things at the top level, you also need to build the relationship within the society. And right now, our society is afraid. Our society sees what is happening in Ukraine. Our society sees what is happening in Palestine. Our society sees what is happening in the South China Sea. And our society grows more and more afraid. The theory of international organization and politics and the theory of functionalism say that we must get people together to do specific problem-solving oriented things in order to overcome some of the bounds of stereotypes across national boundaries. Therefore, when I see all of you across the crowd, so many faces from so many places, I must conclude that our little project has value. Of course, we understand that track 2 diplomacy is not a substitute for track 1 diplomacy, but it compensates for the constraints imposed on leaders by their people's psychological expectations. Most important, track 2 diplomacy is intended to provide a bridge or complement official track 1 negotiations. And with that hope, I would like to bring this year's conversation to a close. I would also like to take the opportunity to announce next year's Bay of Bengal Conversation, which we will be holding from November 2 to November 4, 2024. We will also hold an exciting new event called the Global Directions Conclave, which will be an intensive 10-day policy workshop organized by the Center for Governance Studies. Each year, the conclave will bring together 50 outstanding young leaders between 25 and 35 years of age from diverse backgrounds, geographies, and sectors. The young leaders will be nominated by heads of government, leaders of the private sector, and global experts. The first edition of the Global Directions Conclave is scheduled to be held from March 1 to 10, 2024 in Dhaka and Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. Thank you. We are also in the works of designing a new forum for young diplomats, which will be a week-long workshop where new and young diplomats from various embassies in Bangladesh will be hosted to share ideas about diplomacy as well as discuss and learn more about the political realities of the region. Young Diplomats Forum is scheduled to be held from July 25 to 31st, 2024 in Dhaka and Sylhet. So once again, I want to thank all our honorable speakers and our moderators and distinguished guests. I also want to thank the Pan-Pacific Sonargaon and its world-class staff for being with us year after year. And I want to thank especially all the bright young people who showed such great interest in attending this year's Bay of Bengal Conversation. We could only accommodate a fraction of you, but stay with us on our social media to see all the conversations that took place these last 3 days. I also want to thank all our partners, USAID, UKAID, UNDP, the Asia Foundation, the Australian High Commission, and the Embassy of Germany, as well as all our sponsors, Max Group, the chairman is here, thank you, Cambian Group, and other sponsors who have stayed with us through thick and thin. I want to thank my family, my wife Hamida is here, my children Azman and Niza is here, and my mother who has supported me so much during these turbulent times, and also to my chairman, Dr. Monjur Ahmed Chaudhary. And last but not least, I want to thank my team BOBC, all of my bright and talented colleagues at CGS who spent many sleepless nights organizing these events, who has given me such extraordinary service and managed to create a conference of this scale with such little resources and numbers. Our small team moves mountains without asking questions. Before we close, I want to invite Team BOBC to the stage for a group photo. Dr. Monjur Ahmed Chaudhary, please. Abu Al Said, Ong Cha Ching Marma, Apun Johir, Arman Mia, Bahauddin Mia, Ahmed, Devi Kormukar, she is not here, she is sick, but she spent a lot of, I think many of you know her by this time. Dipanjali Rai, Famida Haq, Julian Ankon Rosario, Kaji Ishrad Jahan, she is not here, Kaji Shams Mohsin Reed, Marjana Manaz, Mohammad Nihad Naushed, Muklesur Rahman, Pradeep Kumar Shil, Roman Uddin, Sadia Tasneem, Sanjoy Devnath, Sravani Akhtar, Surat Rana Rushmi, Shubir Das. Without him, it could be impossible for us to hold this event. Shubir Das, please. Sanjoy Devnath, and the coordinator for this event, Sain Shukyo. Thank you all. Please join me to thank this young and talented team with applaud, please.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We have arrangements for snacks and tea, coffee outside the ballroom. Please have it and have a good night. Thank you.